Good afternoon, everyone. It is Tuesday. It is 4 p.m. ET, and you have found us here on Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze, and we are so thrilled that you have joined us here today. I'm your host, Hank Phillippi Ryan, the USA Today bestselling author of 13 going on 14 thrillers. My newest one, Her Perfect Life, is casually displayed behind me, as you see, and the new one, The House Guest, is coming out in February. And yes, I know you will hear about that way more than you should ever hear about any book, but we are so honored to have you all here today. I see Shannon here already because you know that today we are so delighted and thrilled to be able to chat with the fabulous, unique, and amazing Hannah Mary McKinnon, whose newest book, Never Coming Home, is out right now. Now, you know Hannah, and she is marvelous. And I will tell you up front, she is one of my dearest friends. So to have her on Crime Time is pretty darn wonderful and so much fun too. We met during the pandemic, right? In Dallas before that, right? Which there's an extant picture of that Jen Jumba sent us. But really, we've gotten to be friends online. Isn't that so amazing, Hannah?
It was, shall we say, thanks to COVID or because of COVID? I think we can say thanks to COVID, really, for that happening, because otherwise it might not have. Well, it would have happened eventually, I'm sure, but it was because of the pandemic, wasn't it?
It is one of the silver linings of the pandemic. And look at everybody coming. Here's Anissa and Katie and Carla and Diane and Sue and Susie Baldwin. Oh my golly, who says love you both and First Chapter Fun. Yeah, it's interesting because on First Chapter Fun, and here's Katie. Hello, Hank and Hannah from Boston at Quincy Market. Oh, what a wonderful day for you to be in Boston, Katie. It's interesting because on First Chapter Fun, you all know this, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays at 12:30 p.m. ET on First Chapter Fun on Facebook and Instagram. But Hannah and I, except for a couple of times a year, are not together. We don't get to talk. It's one of us reading and sort of handling the show, and the other one, hey Christina, hey Lynn, hey Darlene. It does feel like 12:30. Darlene is saying, and that is very odd. So today we get to talk, and today, before we talk about the fabulous Never Coming Home, and let me remind you, as always on Crime Time, we do have a giveaway. The fabulous Hannah and her publisher are giving away a copy of Never Coming Home to one of you who leaves a question or a comment or just general applause and adulation for the fabulous Hannah. Will win a copy of Never Coming Home, and we'll spin the wheel of fun at the end of the show, and you will see in about 40 minutes who has won. And we all need to say, and here's something you can all put in the comments: happy anniversary to Hannah and her husband. You are on Crime Time on your anniversary.
I am. It's true, but I have the evening free, so it's all good. But yes, it's our 23rd wedding anniversary today.
And I, you and I have talked many times, but I don't think I've ever asked you publicly how you and your husband met. It's a good story.
It's a crazy story. We met online completely by accident in the dark ages of the internet on January 21st, 1999, when a friend of mine came to my house to install the internet on my computer. And these were the days of dial-up modems with that horrible noise. And you either had to choose between being online or on the phone. And only one person could be online because there was only one line to one computer. It was those days. And he installed the internet, and he said he could add this chat site thing called ICQ. And I said, oh, what's a chat site? I have no idea. I had no idea what that was. And he said, you can chat with people if you're too lazy to go out or whatever. You can chat with people all over the world. And so he installed it, and it had a DOS window, no pictures or anything. And there were categories, 20 to 30s, 30 to 40s. I was 27 or something. And I ran a random search, and a profile popped up with a guy called Razor. That was his nickname. And so I sent him a little message, a direct message that said, hi, Razor, you sound pretty sharp. And we got married 5 months later.
Oh, Hannah, you sound pretty sharp to Razor, and he thought that was funny.
I thought that was hilarious. Yeah. And he was in the middle of a conversation with his best friend who'd moved out west to Edmonton. And this window with my silly comment went over his other window, his chat window with his friend. And he went to X the window with my message. He went to X me, get rid of me, basically. And he pressed minimize by mistake. I know.
I mean,
I know.
those are, those little pivotal moments in our lives. You think about the decisions that we make or the mistakes that we make or the dominoes that fall, that we have no idea how much our lives will change as a result of that moment.
That's right. It was one of those things. I mean, us getting married within 5 months of meeting on the internet, 10 weeks of meeting face to face. We'd only met 10 weeks before we got married. And no, I wasn't pregnant. People might be wondering, no, I wasn't a shotgun wedding or anything. But I have never been, not before or since, so sure of anything in my entire life, ever.
Isn't that, I mean, we have a lot in common, because when I met my husband, the moment I saw him, and it's a long story, which I won't tell, but the moment I saw him, I thought, oh my gosh, this is the one. And from that day that we met, from that day, we have not been apart.
Yeah.
And so we both knew. And sometimes it just happens. I was 46 at the time. So you all, you never know when these kinds of things are going to happen. Hannah, we should talk about your book. For goodness sake, we have, you all, this is just Hank and Hannah and all of you. Pamela's here, Linda's here, Rosanna is here. That is so marvelous. Grace is here. Oh, and hi from Greece, says Bozania. Yes.
Oh.
All the best to you. That's quite amazing. Anyway, let me read you what our dear friend Heather Gudenkauf, you all, said about Never Coming Home. And don't forget to leave a question or a comment for the giveaway. Heather says, who we love, told with pitch perfect pacing and unrelenting tension, McKinnon explores the darkest corners of the human heart in this highly entertaining, bone-chilling read. So highly entertaining and bone-chilling, which is that must have been quite a juggle to write.
It was a pleasure to write, actually. It was really, really fun, because I decided from the outset that I needed to make the protagonist, or antagonist as it were, Lucas, funny, because he basically, it's his story, his entire story, and Lucas has hired a hitman, or had hired a hitman on the dark web to get rid of his wife, and so he's an evil person. And it's very, it's not one of these books where you slowly unravel who the villain is. It's very clear already from the back cover copy, actually, that he is not a good person, that he's up to no good. So in order to ensure that the reader wanted to go along for the ride with somebody who is not a nice person, I needed to find other ways to entice the reader to stick with the story. And one of those ways was humor, because the reader has unfiltered access to everything that's going on in Lucas's brain. And if you enjoy his sense of humor, which I do, you hopefully will find him funny. So he really was a pleasure to write.
And Carla is saying Lucas is a fabulous character. Let me take about 30 seconds, you all, to do a little bit of housekeeping here. I want to welcome you all to Mighty Blaze. If you don't know about Mighty Blaze, we are so glad that you're here today. Mighty Blaze was started at the beginning of the pandemic by the incredible powerhouse team of Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt to keep us talking and keep us listening and to keep us discovering new authors. And we have persevered now for more than 2.5 years, and it is crazy. And today we are bringing you the fabulous Hannah Mary McKinnon and her brand new Never Coming Home. Let me also give you a quick bio about Hannah. I'll leave out the part about meeting her husband, but Hannah, as you can maybe be able to intuit, was born in the UK, grew up in Switzerland, and moved to Canada in 2010. After a successful career in IT recruitment, she quit the corporate world in favor of writing. While her debut, Time After Time, was a rom-com, and you all ask her about that in the questions, okay? She transitioned to the dark side afterward. Her suspense novels include The Neighbors, the bestsellers Her Secret Son, Sister Dear, You Will Remember Me, and the new bestseller, Never Coming Home. Hannah Mary lives in Oakville, Ontario with her husband, as you know, and 3 teenage sons. And she says in her bio, at 5'8", she is officially the shorty pants of the family.
It's true. I
that
really am.
Quite the photo. I mean, your sons are grown-ish.
Yes. So the twins are 17 and a half, and our eldest is almost 19. So you know, they're still growing, I think. I think we need to stop putting fertilizer in their shoes. I'm pretty sure that's
Well,
what
we know you're a good cook, and we can talk about that as well. But Never Coming Home is about a month old now.
Yes.
And has blazed onto the bestseller list in Canada and blazed into everyone's heart. You were saying earlier that it was about Lucas, who's taken out a hit on his wife. Talk a little bit more about the plot, just to set people into where we are.
Sure. So Lucas is smart, clever, smart and clever, always the same thing, sophisticated, and very, very sad because his wife is missing, and she's been missing for a month. But he's not actually sad. He's only pretending to be sad because he organized a hit to be taken out on her. And so he's just waiting to cash in the check of his exceedingly deceased and exceedingly rich and exceedingly annoying wife's money. That's basically what he's after. He's also sad genuinely because his mother-in-law is dying of cancer. But he just has to pace himself and play the perfect role of the grieving husband and then get a ton of money. But somebody knows what he did. And a cryptic note on the back of a cryptic photograph shows up on his doorstep. And Lucas goes from cool, calm, and collected to a bit of a frayed mess as he transitions from hunter to prey.
Oh, I mean, that is irresistible. That is completely irresistible, you all. That is the little bit of a snapshot of what Never Coming Home is like. And you know that if I look over here, I am looking at your comments, Carla, saying, not so sad, is he? And I love that your questions are coming in. Margaret, our producer in the back room of Crime Time, will be watching your questions, and we promise we will get them up to you after Hannah and I talk a little bit. So keep those questions coming, and you are entered to win a copy of Never Coming Home. Was there a moment, was there a domino that fell that gave you the idea for this book?
Yes, it was actually watching movies. I read and reading books, but it was in particular movies where you root for the bad person, male or female. And there was one in particular I remember called I Care a Lot on Amazon Prime with Rosamund Pike, who is just absolute perfection. And she's she's quite the character, and quite a despicable one at that. And yet it is so funny. It's very dark humor and absolutely hilarious. And I just thought, you know, can I write a character who is the villain? And I want to write from the villain's perspective, but also make them highly entertaining and funny. Because you can either write a villain that people absolutely love to hate and cannot wait to see their demise. And that is one way to go. And that creates beautiful, brilliant books like Kara Ruda's Best Day Ever. Paul is one of those people who you're turning the pages so fast because you cannot wait to find out what terrible thing is going to happen to him, and you'll be overjoyed when it does. But there's another way to go, which is that you try and get the readers to hate to love the villain. So you make them endearing or understandable, or give them a background, or there's different tricks that you can use so that the reader actually roots for the bad guy or lady. And that was what I wanted to try and see if I could do.
I mean, in I Care a Lot, Rosamund Pike's character is stealing people's
the elderly's
money. Yeah, it was a total elder abuse, and she's putting them into homes and making them seem like they are incompetent, and then takes their money. And just like on the back cover of Never Coming Home, that cover tells what his plan is, and we know what Rosamund Pike's plan is. But then you take, but she's so cool.
Yes.
Or Hannibal Lecter or Walter White in Breaking Bad or Dexter, those people who you think, well, you're bad, but I see why you're doing this. I see why this happened. And you built this perfect backstory for Lucas that you let out a little bit at a time, just so we begin to understand why he is the way he is. Talk a bit about how you came up with that backstory. You don't have to tell it, but why you thought that sort of motivational element was so critical.
Well, I actually, it's funny, I wrote it before I took a course last year on criminal minds and psychopaths and sociopaths. But it's quite validating to read that I'd done a decent job of Lucas, because I didn't see him as a cold, calculating psychopath, somebody who has absolutely no emotion and just doesn't care about what he does to whom. Yes, he's very cold and calculating, but not with everyone. So I needed to understand him and figure out, okay, so something has happened to him in the past. Many things have happened to him in the past that have made him who he is. So where does that start? What kind of trauma has he experienced, and at what age, to turn him into somebody who is that cold and calculating, and just basically has got to the point where he thinks, if I want something that I feel I deserve, I am going to do whatever it is to get whatever it is I want, because that is my right. So that was really my starting point. How young would somebody be, and depending on what they've experienced, to potentially take that road? Because not everybody does. Not everybody who's experienced trauma turns into somebody like Lucas. People deal with these things in different ways. So I thought a lot about his backstory, actually, about his family and the other things that happened to him, to figure out why he becomes who he is.
And the loss of something or someone, or the loss of love, or the need for family, or the need for validation, or having the rug pulled out from under you in a situation,
Yes.
and leaving yourself as the only one who can take care of yourself. I mean, you
That's
have
right.
to rely on yourself.
That's right.
But the thing about writing from the antagonist's point of view, because there are other quote villains in the story.
Yes.
The thing about writing from the antagonist's point of view is, although we know what's inside Lucas's head, the rest of the world of the book is happening around him at the same time, and we see it only through his eyes.
Yes.
We judge everything through his eyes. So what was that like to write? Because you, the author, know the rest of the world, and you know what's going on, or what has happened, or what will happen. And you see Catherine says, just finished Never Coming Home, and it's great, engaging, fast-paced, and that last page, wow.
Thank you.
But you are not just juggling Lucas, but you're juggling everything that he knows and how he sees it, and also everything that he doesn't know.
Yes.
What's that like to write?
Well, I did the same thing as I did when I wrote Sister Dear. So Sister Dear was the book from 2 years ago, which is just one point of view character. And you see everything through her eyes, and there's stuff going on that she doesn't know about. So the same situation as Lucas in Never Coming Home. And what I needed to do was actually make a separate list of So I had a notebook, and I just wrote down all of the things, both for Sister Dear with Eleanor and for Never Coming Home with Lucas, what was happening in the background that they couldn't know about, but which I needed to know, because I needed that to work into the plot at some point. Not explain what was going on or show what was going on, but give little hints, or have things happen. So Lucas gets these cryptic notes. Okay, so who's sending them? Who's behind that? And what else is going on? And who is basically messing with him? So I had to just have a separate timeline about all of the things that were being done to him. And then in the manuscript write what was going on from Lucas's point of view. So when he discovers the note, when he discovers something else that the person who's messing with him has done, and what his reaction to that would be. So I had to basically have almost a plot, for Never Coming Home for Lucas, and then a mini plot with the person that's messing with him, but keep them separate so Lucas didn't know.
No, I totally understand you, because you have the world of the book in your head, that you,
Yes.
the author, that, but you can't foreshadow it. Things have to happen in a natural way.
Exactly. And that's the danger, I think, when we write, isn't it? That we accidentally drop something in there that gives too much away, and then makes it too obvious, because, like you said, we know everything that's going on, but the characters can't.
And Sally Field, I don't know if I've said this to you, but Sally Field, the actor, used to talk about playing to the end, that she didn't want to know how a play or a movie that she was in would end, because she couldn't stop herself from being that early on, of sort of foreshadowing how her character would end up. And that's a struggle for an author.
Yes, it is. It is. I'm working on, we were chatting about this earlier in the green room, working on the plot for the book for 2024. And I'm struggling to get my head around it, because I have two people who are both lying, but how do I not reveal that they're lying, or do I? So I'm wrestling with that one. It's tricky.
Because you know what person A is saying, and you know what person B is saying, but you also know what's true.
Yes.
And
exactly.
how to convey that, to convey that to the reader when they don't know that.
That's right.
That's really interesting. And I was what was going through my head is, well, you need to have another character who does know the truth. And that brought me to thinking about your marvelous secondary characters in Never Coming Home. If you're just joining us, like Laura Rossi, hello, darling one, and Allie is here today. That's great. We're talking about Never Coming Home. Your secondary characters and supporting cast in Never Coming Home are just rock stars, every single one of them. How did those people appear to you, and who do you love?
I really enjoyed the detective. I thought she was Anjali Dubal. I thought she was really, really fun, because she's smart. And I'm trying to talk about this without giving too much away. But I really liked her. But I also really liked Nora, actually, Lucas's mother-in-law, so Michelle's mum. Because she's
Michelle is Lucas's wife, that he
Lucas's wife, so Lucas's mother-in-law, and I thought she was really sweet and kind and caring. Travis is Lucas's brother-in-law, who has addiction issues, so he was an interesting one to write, because that's not something I know much about, so I had to go digging and talk to people. So that there's a bunch of them. The neighbors, that the couple lives next door. Diane and Karina, I thought they were just lovely, really super neighbors, very kind-hearted as well. So there's plenty of them who I thought also counterbalanced Lucas's evil deeds. And he actually likes most of them.
And you will meet them all when you read Never Coming Home. You were talking about digging to find out about addiction problems. You also must have looked into the dark web, as you dug into the dark web as you wrote this book.
I did. I didn't visit the dark web. I mean, my search history and the stuff I research, it can be pretty gnarly, as we know, as crime writers. And I'm sure with your experiences as a journalist, there's some pretty dark stuff you've seen too. But the dark web was not somewhere I wanted to visit. I didn't really want to end up on an FBI watch list either.
Or who knows who's going to contact you, or what little button you're going to push that's going to be on your computer. But still, what did you find out theoretically about it?
So I listened to a really interesting Audible original podcast called The Dark Web, funnily enough. And it talked about the history of the dark web, and where it all started and why. And then every episode talked about, for example, viruses, how people use it for viruses, malware and stuff, ransomware essentially, and how people have had their, I think it was the NHS in the UK, the National Health System, part of it at least, was taken hostage, basically saying, if you don't pay up via Bitcoin, of course, we're not going to release all of these patient records. So how easy it is basically to access that and to buy viruses. And the one thing that really stuck with me, and I put this in the book because it surprised me so much, is that there's a rating system on the dark web, because it's used for illegal stuff. And so but still, whatever illegal stuff you want to buy, you want to buy it from a reputable seller, which always makes me laugh when I say that, because it's such a silly thing to say.
Like Yelp on the dark web?
I mean, if you're going to buy something illegal, you want to make sure that never mind that it's illegal. If you buy something on the internet, you want to make sure that whatever it is you're buying is good quality, whatever it is. And that also applies to the dark web. Hence, there's a rating system, or there used to be, on the dark web, where you can rate your illegal stuff. And
Margaret in the back in the producer's room is saying, "Honor among thieves of the dark web."
I guess so.
You got to have a code, right? You got to have a moral code for your.
I guess so. Yeah, it was really interesting, but it was also quite terrifying how easy it is, if you are so inclined, to get your hands on stuff that you should not be getting your hands on at all.
But as in a crime book, like crime fiction, like Never Coming Home, there does have to be the payback. It's not going to necessarily be that somebody will get away with everything. And I know, because we're pals, that you didn't sit down one day and just sort of bang out the ending of this book, that this was a process for you, really thought-provoking process for you. What went into creating that ending? And everybody in the comments I'm looking over here is saying, "Oh, that ending." And we don't want to talk about it, but just the process of getting to the one that clicked for you. What's the writer's mind?
It was an anomaly. I think the whole Never Coming Home writing experience was very smooth. And even before, when I write, I need to have the ending in mind. I need to know what the beginning is and what the end is, so I can figure out how I'm going to get from A to B. And sometimes it can take forever for the ending to appear. Sometimes it can click, which it did with Never Coming Home. I knew before I started writing chapter 1 what the last word was going to be, which has never happened before. The only exception is that, or difference, is that the word didn't start with a C. And anyone who has read it will know what I mean by that. And it was just one of these things where both Lucas as a character, he didn't arrive fully formed. That would be a complete exaggeration, but his voice was very present from the beginning. I knew what he would sound like, how sarcastic he was going to be, and how funny I wanted him to be. And equally so, the ending, I just remember thinking, yes, that's the ending, and that's going to be the last word. And I scribbled it down, and it didn't actually change. But
it's interesting, that getting to the ending, that's the key.
Yeah.
For a good author, as you are, is to know your ending, and that last frame of video that you want to leave the viewer with. But getting to that and making that be logical, so that the reader in Never Coming Home is like, "Oh my gosh, inevitable, but oh my golly, I can't believe it," and not, "What? Where did that come from?" So you had to be so careful.
Yes, I had to sit down. So I had the beginning and the end. And then I needed to figure out how I was going to take Lucas on that journey. So that's what took the most time. And what is going to happen? What is the logic? And I basically put myself in his shoes. Now, if the book starts, his wife has been missing, i.e. dead, for a month. If I were him, what would I be doing? Because of course the police are sniffing around. It's always the husband. I'm still going to be a suspect. how can I make sure, and what did I have to do before I took the hit out, to make sure that yeah, sure, they're going to suspect me. Of course they are. They wouldn't be doing their jobs properly if they didn't look at me. But what preparation work, what is the groundwork that I have laid for them to quickly shift their interests elsewhere? So I spent an awful lot of time thinking like a criminal.
Well, I'm wondering about this because, you did such a good job of it. Was this because of your own basic criminal instincts, or did you talk to people about what a police officer would do and what a detective would do?
Should I plead the fifth here? I'm not quite sure how to answer that.
No, it's just us here on podcast.
It's just, oh, that's fine. I mean, I love reading crime and crime shows, and I will never forget. And I put this in the book too. I was at BoucherCon in 2017 in Toronto, so the Murder Mystery Readers Writers Convention, and a police officer gave a talk about footprints and fingerprints and basically crime scene analysis. And we're still in touch. And he helped me with one of the scenes in the forest. He gave me great input on that one, and has helped me get away with fictional murder on a number of occasions. And his name is Ed. And he gave this presentation, and he's really, really clued into footprints in particular, and all of the different ways of solving crimes through footprints. And I put my hand up and I said, I'm curious. Don't criminals think to throw away their shoes if they've committed a crime? And he said, you would be really surprised how many of them don't. They'll go and wash them off, or, take all the mud off or whatever it is, and think they're fine. But of course, footprints, there's the tread on the shoes that you can match. And I just thought that was so crazy that people would not think of disposing of their footwear if they've done something terrible. So that had to make its way into the book, of course. So yes, I had lots of help from Ed, from our friend Bruce Robert Coffin as well, a retired detective sergeant. I asked him, I said, this is the scoop. This is what Lucas has done. This is what he's doing to get away with it. What else if you were on this case and you suspect him, but you're not sure, what does he have to do to fool you, basically? So he helped me out with that too.
That's so great. So we all know now the rules. If you're going to kill someone, be sure to throw away your shoes. And from BoucherCon, and now we all know. So thank you, Hannah. You have enabled all of us. And it is kind of silly. I mean, you do realize that, and I say this about sometimes as being an investigative reporter, and people say to me, why would somebody do that? And I say, well, who knows? But that's why I have a job, and that's why right. Police officers can get their jobs.
That's right.
As well. We're running out of time, and I do want to get to Joan Emerson is saying he, and Anissa is saying good tips today. Yeah, we're called Crime Time. What do you think? What do you think is going on? I really love that. Hannah, you have changed so many people's lives. Before we get to the questions, you've changed so many people's lives, authors' lives and writers' lives and readers' lives. Look at all of your fans here at Crime Time today with First Chapter Fun. If any of you don't know about First Chapter Fun, Hannah, tell how that started. We need to hear the story around the campfire.
Well, first of all, I have to backtrack on what you said and say we have, because First Chapter Fun is our project. So First Chapter Fun, where Hank and I read the first chapter of a different book every Tuesday and Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, in the Facebook group First Chapter Fun, and on Instagram. It all started when the pandemic officially arrived in Canada, or when we went into lockdown, or were about to go into lockdown. And I was on a Facebook Messenger chat with about 14 other authors, and we were panicking because of the pandemic itself, of course, and family in Europe, and basically Europe and Asia really were our glimpse into the future. It was our crystal ball. This is what we're going to be up against, because we were always about 2 or 3 weeks behind Europe. And so it was very worrying, very concerning. And added to that, many of us had books coming out, and all of our events were being cancelled. We were in lockdown, and we just didn't know how this was going to affect our careers and our livelihood. And we were talking about how we could help one another. And so I, off the cuff, basically said, what if I read the first chapter of your books on Instagram and Facebook? Thinking that a few people would say yes, and they did immediately, and a few turned into 40 odd, which turned into 50 odd when I read every day for 50 odd days in a row, when I could have been sat in my pajamas and not do my hair and makeup every day. And then we were connected through Samantha Bailey, and you asked me, so what are you doing with First Chapter Fun, and are you really going to stop? Because I don't think you should. This is so cool. And then we teamed up, didn't we?
We did, and we have been linked by Tuesdays and Thursdays ever since then. We're up to what? How many you read this morning? This afternoon?
247. 246, I think it was.
274.
Oh, sorry, 270. Yes, you're right. Yes, it was. I got my numbers mixed up.
Hank and Hannah do math. We have no idea, and we don't know what day it is, so just forget about it.
It's Blur's Day. Come on.
Exactly so. I mean, sometimes I really only keep track of my life by if it's your day to read or my day to read. And everything else is up for grabs. But when you look at, I mean, here's Allie, who is such a part of the First Chapter Fun family, and she's here today, and Shanson and Grace and Katie and Diane, who says FCF has been my lifeline. When you see comments like that, what do you think about this thing that you started?
I am massively grateful to everybody who watches, because it wasn't just a lifeline for people who are watching, or Dan saying FCF has been my lifeline. When I pitched the idea, it was also a little bit self-serving, in the sense that I kept watching the news and I kept refreshing the data on Worldometer to see how many cases of COVID there were. And there were 150,000, and I was freaking out. I mean, that seems like nothing now, right? But I needed a distraction. And so when I see that the response from people, how they've loved it and they've stuck with it, and more people are joining, and we're still going. This was supposed to be a 6-week project, and you and I talk about it, and we basically say, if the audience drops off, or if we're essentially reading to ourselves, then there's no point. But we've never got to that point, and I'm amazed, because we thought that maybe as the world goes back to normal, which we're getting there. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. Certainly here, it very much feels like things are back to normal. That we expected that people might stop watching because they're fed up of stuff online, but they haven't, have they?
No, it's been lovely. And I think that one of the things that happens is, people come on their lunch hour and they say it's sort of adult story time with Hank and Hannah. And what could be better than hearing the first chapter of a book? I mean, it's just enough to have you decide whether you love it or just kind of like it, or whether it's not your taste. But it's you're only giving a little bit of your time, and you're becoming part of a community and part of a family.
Yes.
And you're getting to meet, as I look at the comments here, Susie Baldwin is saying, please don't ever stop. And Joan Emerson is saying, Hannah, your distraction has been wonderful for all of us. Also wonderful for the authors, because how many times on Crime Time, for instance, and on First Chapter Fun, do we have someone say, oh, this is a new author to me?
Yes.
Even here on First Chapter Fun, even here on Crime Time, where are we? Even here on Crime Time, someone had mentioned in the comments that you are a new author for her, and that is marvelous. And today we all got to hear about Never Coming Home, and we're coming up to the giveaway, which we will do in a minute. But producer Margaret has been keeping track of all of your questions, and we would love, Hannah, if you can take a couple minutes to answer some of the questions. And the first one is, when is the best time to read a psychological thriller? If you're already scared, says Becky Sue, reading the book's description. Your books aren't scary. They're not scary.
No, I don't think mine is scary, honestly. I don't read horror. I don't watch I don't watch or read horror, and I don't like anything supernatural. That just freaks me out. I'm not very good with that. So I think with mine, if they might scare you, then probably when the lights are on.
But I think it's more of a suspense and attention thing.
Yes.
You can't, I mean, Becky Sue, I think that you want to turn the pages as fast as you can because you can't wait to see what happens. But it's not like, oh my golly, something's going to leap out of the closet.
No,
it's not that kind of scary. It's just
No,
wonderful, wonderful Hitchcockian suspense. And of course, in Never Coming Home, you're also going to laugh. So that will take away some of that.
hopefully.
Well, who else has a question? Sharon says, hey, Sharon, what is your favorite book that the other wrote? Oh my golly. Hank, your favorite book of Hannah's. Hannah, your favorite book.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's
you know, up until I read up until I read The House Guest, I would have said Her Perfect Life.
Oh.
But now I've read The House Guest, I'm going to say The House Guest.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's interesting because I do think that's my new book, you all. I'll mention that one more time, maybe more than once. Comes out in February. I do think that one of the things that we share is that we're trying to challenge ourselves with every book. I mean, I love my first books, but I know that I have raised the bar on myself every time. And that's part of the fun. Do you do that too?
I do. I definitely do. I think we're very similar in that we don't see ourselves in competition with other authors, but we see ourselves in competition with our past selves. And I do think an awful lot about readers. Not to the point where I'm thinking, oh, how can I please every reader? Because that's impossible and I'm just going to end up with a mess. But basically thinking, okay, so I want to surprise my readers. I don't want them to go, oh, it's another, it's good, but it's another one of whatever it is I've written before. So coming up with something fresh and new and different that also stretches me as an author. Do you find the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I was just sort of thinking back over the books of yours that I've read and all of them, and I didn't read them in order because I read Sister Dear first.
Right.
When you and I were first connected. And I remember thinking, well, I can tell you that I always can figure out the endings of things. I always know. I'm like, oh yeah, it's the whatever it is. The mother-in-law, it's the aunt, it's the brother, it's the father, she's going to drown, whatever it is, I know. And I did not know. You totally got me in Sister Dear. And then in You Will Remember Me, I thought, holy mackerel, she's writing about someone with amnesia who has no backstory. That's a high bar. And then to write from the standpoint of the antagonist, that is a big juggling act in Never Coming Home. So I love all of those books for different reasons. I mean, so it's hard to say.
It's hard, yeah.
But it's a fun question.
It's a good question.
Allie says, and this is going to be something that I was going to ask. So good, Allie, thank you. You're branching out to write a different genre with a different publisher under a pen name. How has the process been different? Let me say quickly that Hannah started, her first book was a rom-com. And now she has announced that she is going to additionally, not giving up her thrillers, additionally write a different kind of book. So you go ahead and tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's a holiday rom-com that we'll publish under the pen name Holly Cassidy in autumn, probably October 2023. And it was so much fun to write. It was because there's a lot of humor and a lot of banter in it, which I really enjoyed with Never Coming Home. So there was even more room for that in a rom-com. And in a sense, it was, I'm not going to say easy because I don't like using the word easy when we talk about writing books because it isn't. But there was some of the pressure in terms of plot was taken away because in a rom-com, you expect a happy ending. You don't expect a massive twist at the end and everybody dies. That would not go over well.
But on the other hand, let me interrupt you to say, and welcome Brenda, who says she made it to the end. She had chauffeur duty today, so we're glad that Brenda could make it. But on the other hand, when you're writing a novel of suspense or a thriller, someone's going to get killed, and that is a pivotal point of the novel. In a rom-com, probably nobody's going to get killed. So without that guy comes into the room with a gun, twist, was it a juggle to think, well, what is going to happen here?
No, not with this one. No, the plot came together for the Christmas book really, really quickly. Now, I have a phone call with my editors about it next week, so this answer might be premature. But the plot was, it was lighthearted and fun, and it's basically obstacles and calamities,
Yeah.
and how am I going to prevent these two people from getting together, from becoming a couple? What could possibly happen? What obstacles can I throw in their way? All the while making it fun. So it really was a joy to write. It was really, really fun.
And when you see the promotion for this, when Hannah announced this, she had her picture as Hannah Mary McKinnon, just her little author picture. And then when she announced for the Holly Cassidy book, was the same exact picture, but with a Santa hat on.
Yes.
So you're making no bones about that. You're the same person.
I'm the same person. Yeah, we just decided to use a different name. And so Holly, because Christmas, Cassidy actually means curly headed, and HC is Happy Christmas. So it all kind of ties together neatly.
Adorable. So. It's meant to be, and I cannot wait to read it. We have time for one more question. Absolutely, one more question. Hank mentioned your stellar cooking. Ooh, yes, we're all coming to your house. Is there a particular meal associated with never coming home?
A particular meal? Well, there is one scene which I thought was really quite funny, where Lucas is thinking about his wife when she decided they were going vegan. It wasn't a discussion. She decided they were going vegan, and he just cooked this succulent steak with homemade fries and béarnaise sauce, I think, and he's just trying to eat his last official steak. Just, woman, let me eat my steak type situation, which I found very humorous. So I'm going to have to go with that. And Rob is very, very good at barbecuing steak. So
Sue Johnson Bishop is asking, do your husbands read your book, let alone influence your dinners?
He listens to them. So last year when he drove to New Brunswick and back to go and visit family, which we're going to do in a few weeks, he called me and he said, I've just finished You Will Remember Me, and I think I'm just going to drive past Oakville and keep going because you freaked me out.
You scared him.
And he says he's going to listen to Never Coming Home when we drive to New Brunswick. So I don't know if he's just going to stop by the side of the road and tell me to get out and leave me there because he's just scared.
That's right. I mean, it is a little chilling. I mean, my husband, in answer to your question as well. Let me just go back to you a little bit though, Hannah. When I know, so Rob was kidding, and that's all funny, and that's great. But you've had such a success with Never Coming Home and your other books. What does your family think about how you came from your IT person to your writer person?
Rob's immensely proud, and the boys are too. I mean, they joke, when I say to them, I think it was with was either with You Will Remember Me or Sister Dear, that it was on the bestseller list, and they said, oh, that's great, Mum, what's for lunch?
Yeah,
that kind of reaction. But they are super proud, and I know that there have been people at the high school who have said, oh, your mum's an author, that's really cool, because I've been interviewed by the local newspaper and stuff, so a couple of people know that I'm their mum. So they're very proud. And I know my dad. So my mum passed 2 years ago, and she was immensely proud. And my dad tells me that all the time, which is just, it's really, really, really touching. He says, oh, your mum, if your mum could see you, she'd be so proud. It's just, it's lovely. It really is. I have a tremendous amount of support from my family. I'm really grateful and not just Rob and my dad, but my extended family, my in-laws. I know my in-laws will go to Costco or the bookshops and turn my books so that they face out.
Absolutely, that's a family requirement, no question about that.
Yeah, very, very.
And great that they're wise enough to figure that out, to know to do that. That's wonderful. Yeah. I'm just scouting through the questions. Let's have two more real quick ones.
Sure.
Anissa, the fabulous Anissa, is asking at about 4:10. Was Lucas the most difficult character that you have written?
No, he was one of the smoother ones. There's that easy word again. He was one of the smoother ones because He was very clear in his intent, and his voice was so clear to me. So no, he was not difficult. The man on the beach in You Will Remember Me, he was the most complicated because he has amnesia, and I couldn't give him a backstory. He was difficult. But Lucas was a pleasure too, murderous ways and all.
That's great. Well, the last question we'll give to Katie Mirsky, who is an author herself. No, you know what? First, let me have you have done an imitation of what Lucas sounded like when he came to your mind, which I love. What did Lucas sound like to you?
He sat next to me and he went, "Go on. Tell him my story. Go on. You know what I sound like. Go on. Tell my story. You know you want to." It was that kind of smooth, coaxing, go on. And I've got a sense of humor. Go on, girl. Write my story.
I love that. I love that story so much. And I know what that feels like when a character appears in your head. Well, as I said, we'll give the final question, and we're not going to get to them all. So forgive me, you all. But we can answer them later in the comments if we get to. Katie is asking, which genre do you enjoy writing? Which do you like better, comedy or thriller?
I can't say that I like either more. I mean, it was new for me again, really, to write a rom-com, because I hadn't written a rom-com since, well, Time After Time, published in 2016. So I'd written it almost 10 years ago, I suppose, the first version, first draft. I love the rom-com because it's funny and sweet and nobody dies, and that was really nice to write. But I love the thrillers because the characters are so gnarly and so flawed, and it has to be said, I am a rule follower. I've always been a bit of a nerd. And if I had homework, my homework was always done it was always done early. If I had forms to fill in, if the boys would come home with forms for the school or whatever it is, it will be early. I hate being late. So I'm a rule follower and a people pleaser. So it's actually really lovely and fun to not be like that via my characters, and to do all these bad things, fictional bad things, without there being any consequences.
Well, you do the fictional bad things beautifully. Never Coming Home is a triumph. And I think it is about time to give away, forgive me, I've been looking over here, you all, to see your questions. Let's give away a copy of Never Coming Home. We'll spin the wheel of fun to see who wins. I always think this should have music, don't you? We could,
yeah.
Except you and I can't sing. We know that. And the winner is Diane. That's Diane. So great. And Diane is such a fan of First Chapter Fun and such a part of the family. And we're thrilled about that. So Diane, you can email me, and Hannah will get you a copy of Never Coming Home. Before I let you go, and before I say goodbye to Hannah, let me remind you not to miss us next Tuesday at 4 p.m. ET. We will have the incredible Kate White with her brand new book, The Second Husband, which is not even out yet, and you will hear about it first on First Chapter Fun next Tuesday at 4 p.m. ET. You know Kate White is, I almost dropped the book. You know Kate White is fantastic, and she's brilliant and twisty, and this is, I don't know how she keeps doing it, but it is a story of love and marriage and relationships and infidelity and deception and all that cool stuff that Kate White always writes about it. If you go to her Instagram page, she has a video of her opening her books, and it's called The Second Husband. And as she says in her video on Instagram, her second husband, she has him opening the box of books. Isn't that's, and there is Kate White for you. There is Kate White.
I wonder if he reads her books and if he's worried.
Well, you never know. I'm sure he does. He's a former newscaster from Boston. So our paths have crossed without crossing. We have the same background. It's pretty interesting. Priya says, congratulations, Diane. Welcome, Priya. I hope you will all join us on First Chapter Fun every Tuesday and Thursday at 12:30 p.m. ET. If you are new to First Chapter Fun, come join us. Bozania is saying, Hannah, I just adore your voice. So calm. You can be calmed every Tuesday and Thursday at 12:30 p.m. ET, Bozania, if you join us on Facebook on First Chapter Fun. And Hannah, thank you for letting us talk way too long about Never Coming Home.
Oh, thank you.
To be here today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and thank you, Hank, for as always, Your enthusiasm, boundless energy is amazing and inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I love you and I love this book and I love all of you. And I will see you right here next Tuesday at 4 p.m. for Crime Time. And until then, remember, it is always safe inside a book. And we will see you next time.